Hello, YouTube. Once again, this is your poster child for overactive brain disorder. And this is another Ivory Watchtower production, which is a subchannel of Kitchen Table Apologist. This particular one is called Intimacy and the Name of God. Now, first off, I'd like to thank Keith Walker for putting me up to the idea. He didn't actually suggest it. I just happened to bounce off that. He's got to thank blog@evidenceministries.org, and one of the things he's doing is conversations with a Jehovah's Witness pioneer. Particular discussion that got me thinking about this is called Logic in the Name of God. The question involved here is, does using the name of God imply a more intimate relationship with him, as the Jehovah's Witnesses claim? Now let's start by looking at how we actually show intimacy. First off, we have to have the thoughts of intimacy, basically deciding that we want to have a deeper relationship with a particular person than somebody else. And so, it could come up in terms of actions. Actions, relating to the things we do for each other. I help you out, you help me out. If you build me a snowman, then I'll build one for you. Things like that. And, defending each other against assault. If I see my friend being attacked, I might jump in and help him out. And my friend might do the same thing for me. He shows some sort of intimate relationship. And also talk about it in terms of our words. Praise each other and back up our actions with the words that we have. But, the particular way of showing intimacy that we want to go into in this particular video is basically the names or titles we use for each other. So, what's the difference between a name and a title? For this purpose, a name is a unique personal identifier. Unique, it applies to only one person, and it's personal because it always applies to the same person regardless of what position they're in. And titles are impersonal, positional identifiers. Impersonal, unlike the personal ones, they can apply to different people at different times. The positional thing basically applies to whoever is occupying a particular position at the moment. Okay, so which of these is more intimate? Is it more intimate to use a name or a title? Well, I guess it depends. It depends on the name or title in question, among other things. So, you got things like Majesty, Highness, Sir, Boss. These are titles that we give to somebody who's in a position over us. That's not really all that intimate. Of course, it could go the other way too, like slave or whatever, but we're not going to get into that at the moment. Now something like husband, wife, sweetheart, lover, whatever, things like that. Those are a lot more intimate because that they show that there's a relationship here that is intensely more or innately more intimate. The intent of why you are using a particular name or title is also important. History between the two people may give it a new meaning. If I know of someone as the Fox, that doesn't seem like it's all that intimate. Maybe it's call him the Fox because of some incident we had in the back, and relates to a chance where we got to know each other better. That could give history a new meaning. And also, as I said, the intent of the usage. If you say, this is my wife, and I love her, things like that. That's, using it with intimacy. But if it's just basically, you never actually refer to her as by her name or any sort of indication that you have any respect for her, and you just say, well, wife, go do this, wife, go bring me dinner, wife, do wife, make my bed, things like that. You've really lost a lot of intimacy that would normally otherwise be applied to this title. Now let's get to the name of God itself. We've got the Tetragrammaton here, Yod He Vav He in the Hebrew, used nearly 7,000 times in the Hebrew Old Testament to refer to, the grand God, creator of the universe, and all that. The pronunciation has been lost throughout the ages, most probably like Yahweh, but there's room for variation in that. So Raimundus Martini, Catholic monk from Spain, he rendered it Jehovah in 1270 in one of his works. And this particular version appeared 4 times in the King James Version. That's where Jehovah's Witnesses got it from. And so, it ties to the verb to be in Hebrew. It can also imply that this is a God of action and power and stuff like that, which we know about God through stuff. So this makes sense. So, what does it actually mean if somebody's using this name, Jehovah, Yahweh, whatever? So, is it more intimate to refer to the Creator as God or as Yahweh or Jehovah, whatever? Where this is what we need to do. Well, it depends on what you mean by God. If when you think of God, all you're thinking of is basically a Lord, Master, Sovereign, King, something like that, someone who is basically giving you instructions that you need to obey. That's not all that intimate to use that, and using something like Yahweh, Jehovah, whatever, would be a little more intimate. Now, if you think of God and you're thinking, well, this is my God, my Creator, my Sustainer, my friend, my Redeemer, things like that, that could very well imply a lot more intimate, relationship than just using the name. If I introduce somebody as, this is Bob, or, they don't know what kind of relationship I have with this person. If I say, this is my friend, and maybe give them the name, even if I don't, they know that there's a much more intimate relationship than it would otherwise. So, how are we to address God? We have 4 passages here. This is from the Sermon on the Mount. I'm just going to read through them and then let you figure out how Jesus suggests we are to address God. Likewise, let your light shine before men, so that they may see your fine works and give glory to your Father who is in the heavens. But you, when making gifts of mercy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your gifts of mercy may be in secret. Then your Father who looks on in secret will repay you. But when you pray, go into your private room, and after shutting your door, pray to your Father who is in secret. Then your Father who looks on in secret will repay you. You must pray then this way: Our Father in the heavens, let your name be sanctified. So Jesus says that we're to call him Father. It doesn't say Jehovah or Yahweh, whatever. We're to call him Father. God is our Father in the heavens, whatever. So, and Jesus, as the Son of God who came from heaven, is teaching us how to relate to God, our Father. Father, unlike some of the other relational titles that exist out there, can only apply to one person. We only have one Father in the heavens. We only have one Father on earth, too, but that's a different story. It also implies a much more intimate relationship than just using the person's name. So, to look at that, let's just look at what we teach our kids. While it is good for a child to know his father's name, it's generally been considered rude for him to reference his father by name. I mean, one exception we do have is like identification. It's like, well, who is your father? By all means, the kid will identify. It's like, my name's Homer Watson. My father's Homer Watson. This is, or point him out. Okay, there he is. Here's his name. His Homer. Whatever. This is generally how, an exception to the thing that most of the time your kid is not going to give the name. It doesn't end at adulthood. I mean, even grown people, you're going to say, well, I'll talk to my father about it. Or just doing something that I'll talk to Homer, or I'll talk. That just basically sounds weird, and for good reason. Even other people are expected to respect this relationship. We're so respectful that it's even considered rude to use the name of another person's parent while you're talking to the person. Like with my niece, I'll ask her, how's your father doing? I know her father's name. It's Dan or whatever, but I'm not going to ask her that, because it's just it's a dissonance thing. Want her to always think of him as her father, and that's just how I'm going to approach that. Jesus, as our exemplar, did not disrespect this relationship by using our Father's name in our presence. And so, we need to deal with that, because he always referred to him as our Father, your Father, my Father. And this is, this is the example he set, and we really should respect that. So, when the Watchtower uses Jehovah instead of Father, what does that actually mean? What kind of implications do we get from that? Well, they call themselves Jehovah's Witnesses. Not his sons, his witnesses. Jehovah, it sounds like there's a big court proceeding, and they kind of bring that on in the sense that they talk about, well, we need to guard his name from slander. Again, Satan's slandering God's name, and we need to be his witnesses and defend that. We also, have various publications they put out. Fun titles like "Become Jehovah's Friend" and "Remain in God's Love." If I'm thinking of God as my Father, which I do, I don't think in those terms. Why should I become Jehovah's friend? I'm already his son, and dealing with that relationship, and building it up will be friendly and act more friendly. Remaining in God's love, well, how can I fall out of God's love? Love for our kids is supposed to be unconditional. And in God's case, Jehovah, it's very much unconditional. He loves us, despite all the bad things we do. So, but I'm just going to bring this up here. If Jehovah's your father, then aren't you his child? It seems pretty obvious, but given the kinds of things we have here, there are some people who apparently don't think of themselves as children of Jehovah. And if that's the case, well, if we are his kids, there's a verse that applies to us. If then we are children, we are also heirs. Heirs indeed of God, but joint heirs with Christ, provided we suffer together so that we may also be glorified together. So, here is the deal. This is basically what I see as the answer to this. Those who address me by my name Dominic, I know one of two things about them. Either they're not my kids, or they're being rude. And since I generally know who my kids are, I can usually tell the difference. So, if I hear people referring to God as Jehovah or Yahweh, whatever, instead of Father, what am I to conclude about them? Wouldn't that be the same sort of disjunction here, that either they're not his children or they are, but they're being rude? I use names for my friends. I don't use names for my father. And, it's great to have God as a friend, and great to work, building relationships so that we can actually be friendly. But I would much rather have him as my father, as is promised in the Bible, and that is a much more intimate thing. And that I will refer to God as my father long before I refer to him as, just a friend, with a name. So once again, this is your poster child for overactive brain disorder, and until we meet again, enjoy. Please check out my channels, other channels, subscribe to everything, and I'll see you later.